wolves. Grandfather shook his head with his beard bobbling from side to side. Oh, Peter, Peter, you may be a big boy, but you still have just a little left to learn. He grabbed his grandson by the hand, took him out of the meadow, back through the garden gate, and safely back home. But no sooner had the door closed behind Peter and his grandfather than something sinister began to stir in the shadows of the forest. Something was lurking. Something with dark fur and bright teeth. Something fierce and ferocious. Something big and bad. A grey wolf came stepping out of the forest and into the meadow, licking his lips. Hungry, hunting for something to eat. The keen-eyed cat, well, she saw the wolf, and then a flash of fur, she shimmied up the tree all the way to the top and safety. And she stared down at the wolf with wide eyes. But there on the pond was the sitting duck, and as the wolf stalked towards the pond, the duck began to panic. Well, she started to flap, and she flapped, and she flapped, and she flapped, and then she flapped until she flipped out of the pond and into the meadow. The duck, she tried to run with her fat flappy feet, but the duck was no match for the wolf, and as soon as he got close enough, he caught her. Little duck. Poor little duck. The greedy wolf, with his great big jaws, had swallowed her whole. Well, Peter stood by his bedroom window with his face pressed against the glass. And from there he could see everything that was happening in the meadow. There, on one branch of the willow tree, was the cat, casual as usual. And there, on another branch of the tree, far away from the cat, was the little blackbird. Well, the cat looked at the blackbird with narrow green eyes. And the bird looked at the cat, fanned out his feathers, hopped into the air, up and down again. Whilst round and round the bottom of the tree prowled the hungry wolf, growling greedily, looking at both the bird and then the cat. Waiting for his moment when one of them would leave the tree. Inside the house, Peter was feeling sad about the gobbled up duck. And he was feeling bad too, because it was he who had left the garden gate open in the first place. Remember? But Peter was a big boy now. And big boys aren't afraid of anything. Not even scary wolves. While Grandfather was sleeping in the house, Peter tiptoed out into the garden. He went to the shed and got a long piece of rope, and then he climbed up onto the high garden wall. And from there he could reach one of the branches of the willow tree and pull himself up. And there Peter perched in the crown of the tree next to his little friend, the blackbird. Peter, he had a big plan to catch that wolf, but he needed a little help. He told the blackbird to swoop down from the tree and to fly around the wolf's head, but don't let him catch you in his jaws. The vicious wolf leapt and twisted up into the air, trying to catch the bird. Snap! Snap! How quick and clever was the little blackbird, always flying just out of reach of the wolf's jaws. How fierce and furious and frantic was the wolf. But no matter how hard he tried, the wolf couldn't catch the bird. While the brave blackbird was busy doing his bit, Peter was ready now to play his part in the plan. He twisted his end of the rope into a loop and carefully lowered it down from the tree to catch the wolf by his tail. But the wolf and his tail wouldn't stay still until suddenly Peter caught the wolf. But the wolf, realizing he was caught, began to pull back, nearly pulling Peter out of the tree. It was a vicious tug-of-war between a big bad wolf and a little boy, and Peter seemed to be losing. But then clever Peter had a clever idea. He tied his end of the rope to the strong trunk of the tree, and now the wolf's struggles made the knot get tighter and tighter and tighter until the wolf's strength began to fail. And eventually he had to give up. Just at that moment, a band of hunters came out of the forest and into the meadow with rifles in their hands and a tune on their lips. We're big and strong, so all days long we wander through the woods, hunting bears and wolves. We're not scared of wolves and bears. We just sing our hunting song. We sing our hunting song. All day long, those hunters had been following the trail of the wolf, and now they saw the tail of the wolf tangled up in a tree. They lifted up their guns, raised them to their shoulders, took aim, and... "Don't shoot," said Peter. "We've already caught the wolf. Me and Birdie, we did it by ourselves, and we weren't even scared." When the hunters heard this, they put down their guns and they slapped their thighs and started to laugh. One of the hunters put his hands on Peter's shoulders and said, "What a big, brave boy you are." one day you'll make a fine hunter like us. We might even teach you our hunting song. Peter insisted that the hunters didn't kill the wolf. Instead, they lowered the snapping, snarling creature down into a wooden cage to take him to the zoo. Imagine the proud procession of people that day, all the way from Peter's little house to the city of St. Petersburg. Leading the way, of course, was proud Peter, the little boy who'd shown himself up to be a big, strong boy and not afraid of anything. Behind Peter came those hunters, still singing their hunting song. We're big and strong, so all days long we wander through the woods, hunting bears and wolves. We're not scared of wolves and bears, we just sing our hunting song. We sing our hunting song. And next, inside the cage, with his tail lashing from side to side, was the wolf, safely carried on the shoulders of the hunters. After the hunters came old grandfather, with the cool cat still strolling between his feet. Grandfather was still shaking his head with his beard bobbling from side to side. Oh, Peter, Peter, what if the wolf had caught you rather than the other way around? You would have been in a proper pickle. But Peter still wasn't listening to his grandfather. He was too busy enjoying the music of the procession. And flying above them all, the little blackbird, tweeting to everybody how brave and clever he had been to fool the wolf. And slowly the procession marched off into the distance. But if you listen really carefully, you'll be able to hear somebody else. The duck, still alive inside the wolf's tummy. And how she ever got out of there, well, that's another story. Thank you very much. Well, little Wolfgang, and that was our version of Peter and the Wolf. We hope you enjoyed it. We've got just a few minutes left for one more little story with more classical music. Have you got rooms in your ears for another piece of music and another story? This man here is very good. He's responding. Thank you, sir. We've got one little story. It's a piece of music that a lot of you will know, and you'll recognize it in a minute. And it's a story that's familiar maybe to a few of you, but what we've done is put the story and the tune together for, as far as we know, the first time. So we'd like to perform with you as we leave our version of Bolero. Bolero. Goes like this. Once there was a woodcutter, a man who made his living by felling trees and selling timber. He made enough money to put a roof over his head and food on his table. But he was a man who was always wishing for more. And at night, all of his dreams were golden. One bright winter's day, the woodcutter found himself walking through a part of the forest where he'd never been before. And eventually he came across an old birch tree with bent branches and twisted trunk. Oh, it's only good enough for firewood, thought the woodcutter. And so he lifted up his axe, he raised it above his head, he was about to chop when the tree started to shiver. And the tree started to shake. And just the sort of thing that a tree does in a story when it's about to speak. Stop, stop, don't chop, said the tree. Well, the man was surprised, the talking tree. But then he was delighted to discover that this old tree was in fact an old Russian wishing tree. And so he put down his axe, he picked a little green leaf, and he made a little wish. He wished that he could be not a woodcutter but a farmer. And it came true. There he was, living in a big farmhouse, fields full of crops, stables full of animals, table overflowing with food. It was a good life being a farmer, and for a while the woodcutter was happy. But he was a man who was always wishing for more. And so one day he went back into the forest. He went back to the old bent birch tree. He lifted up his axe above his head. The tree shivered, and the tree shook, and the tree spoke. Stop, stop, don't chop. And so he put down his axe. He reached forward and picked another little leaf, and he made another wish. He wished that he could be the Lord of the Manor. And so it was. He became the Lord of the Manor, living in a fine mansion, wearing fine clothes, and drinking fine food and fine wine. It was a fine life. He even found himself a fine wife. Well, he was happy for quite a long time, but eventually he got up, he was fed up, and back to the forest he went because he wanted to wish for more. He found the bent old birch tree. He lifted up his axe, was about to chop, when the tree shivered, and the tree shook, and the tree said, stop, stop, don't chop. He put down his axe, he reached out, and he picked another leaf, and he wished. He wished that he could be a king, the Tsar of all Russia. There he was, living in a golden palace, sitting on a golden throne, eating from a golden plate and drinking from a golden goblet. It was all his golden dreams come true. And he should have been happy too. But even then, with all that gold, he began to wish for more. Back to the forest he went, back to the old bent birch tree, lifted his axe above his head. The tree shivered, and the tree shook, and then the tree spoke. Stop, stop, don't chop. He put down his axe, and he reached out and picked another leaf, and he made a wish, a big wish. He wished that he could be the biggest being in all the land, and that wish came true too. He started to grow hair all over his body. He fell down onto all fours and started to get bigger and bigger and bigger until he became a big brown bear. And the bear rumbled off into the forest and right out of this story. Thank you very much. We are Little Wolfgang. Thank you for coming here and listening to our versions of those musical stories. Fiona on the fiddle, Eddie on the accordion, David on bassoon. My name is Martin. Thank you for coming. We'll see you, I hope, another day. If not, may you all live happily ever after.